Scrappers and recyclers, welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every Sunday we take a look at what's going on in the precious metals market, industrial metals market, safety, and other issues as they apply to our wonderful world of scrapping and recycling. It is great to be here. And look at that, we had a nice clean start to the live stream. I don't know. I think the folks at EV Mux got a little bit scared with some of the conversations I had with them this week. We'll see how that plays out for the long term, but it is great to be here. Scrapping Irish, welcome to the show. Richard Hulbert, welcome. Great to have you here. Andy Pass, great to have you here as always. And Roger at CU Scrapping has joined the house. David Fillet is in the house. Great to have everybody here. We got folks saying hello to each other. It is awesome. Such a wonderful, wonderful crowd of folks. I am looking forward to having a lot of fun today. And one of the main reasons I'm looking forward to having fun today because we're talking gold, baby. Oh yeah, we love gold. It's so much fun. So let's just dive right into it. And we are looking at the APMEX gold chart right now. Now, remember, I am not sponsored by APMEX, and I do not get any kind of compensation from them. But funny enough, I reached out to them this last week and asked the question, and turns out they don't have sponsorship programs, but the marketing people did take my name and are talking with their leadership about what might be done. So that could be a lot of fun. I seriously doubt anything will come of it, but you never know. AppMex is a site that I have used to buy and trade my physical gold and silver, which is the only way that I recommend you hold gold and silver. And I do recommend that everybody have gold and silver in their portfolio. It is such an awesome way to hedge your bets, to build some wealth, those kind of things. So we are looking here. We see we're in the 1 week chart, and we have an interesting sort of pattern here. It's almost a sinusoid. So what I'm talking about is we after we climbed up at the beginning of the week and we got up here to this level that we're at, what we saw go on was a little up, a little down, a little up, a little down, a little up, a little down, but it all sort of, moved right along this line here. And the beautiful thing about that is that it gives the people like boardsort.com, all of our buyers out there, the confidence to hold or raise their prices. And we saw that BoardSort recently raised their prices on a number of things. But one of the things that you can really bank on is when you see that Goldfinger gram went up to $40 a pound. So that is really sweet when we see those kind of things go on. And all my buyers came in with higher prices in these last couple weeks. So that's really nice. Now, we take a look at the month. It smooths out a lot of that up and down, but overall, real nice. We're up 9.13%. And, here you can see kind of a plateau climbed, and here's this plateau that we were just looking at here. Again, it's smoothed out, but that's sort of the way things have played out. When we look at the year, what we see here is also really nice signals. Overall, if we go from here to here, very clearly we're up 45.6%. That's really sweet. But you can see it wasn't always a smooth ride. We had some pickup here, then we dropped off again. We're picking up. We had this little burble in here. Then you start getting some of these shorter term gyrations going on. But even in here from April through, from, this mid-April to late August, some real nice peaks going on there. And here we are climbing up here. All right, well, let's get over to the trading economics site because we get to do a lot more here. And the first thing that we do is we're going to talk about the analysis from trading economics. We have some real good information going on here. By the way, I'm also not affiliated with trading economics. In fact, I pay a fee for additional access to information and such from them. So, again, I'm not sponsored by them. I don't get any compensation at all. So we see the gold climb to 356 an ounce, moving towards its record high and on track for the fourth consecutive weekly gain as expectations of a looser U.S. monetary policy held firm. And we talked about that some in the past, but essentially, as the U.S. lowers interest rates, then investors are more inclined to hold on to things that are referred to as non-interest bearing, like precious metals, because they just sit around and take up space. They don't earn any interest. And so, the investors will put money in them in anticipation of future gains, even though they're not going to get interest. But their figure, what investors are thinking is, well, the interest rates are kind of low right now, so I'm not going to get that much anyway. There's some talk in here about what's going on with the Fed and why they're going to lower interest rates and such, which is fine. I do want to point out here when you see this term basis points, right now they're talking about markets have already priced in a 25 basis point rate cut. A basis point is 1/100th of a percent, so 0.01. So when you see 25 basis point rate cut, what they're talking about is a rate cut of 0.25%. All right, so don't get that confused with 25%, it's 0.25%. But still, when the Fed reduces the rate, then we see other rates go down. And the idea here is that industry can borrow money at less cost, and that should spur some growth. Unfortunately, what we have seen too many times, especially here in the US, is that companies borrow the money, but then they just use it for stock buybacks and not positioning themselves for future growth. It's an entirely different story to have. All right. We also see a lot of instability in the world. This has been a common theme, a primary driver of these prices going up, whether it's the tariffs being, the on again, off again, confusing. What are they? What's being tariffed? Tariffs of the United States, or the wars that are going on around the world. All of that uncertainty causes investors to go to precious metals. So we see that happening. It's one of those things that I always it's like I'm glad to see the prices going up, but I always feel bad because the reason why the prices are going up is because there's bad things happening in the world. So that's the way it is, right? That's part of the game for us. We're going to pop over here to the candlestick charts real quick. Now remember, we're looking at a whole year here, and each candlestick is going to represent 1 day of trading. And we're going to zoom in on this portion of the chart here. So here we go on this portion of the chart. So we climbed up here in late April, and we had this spike at 34,980. And then it looked like gold was hitting some resistance for quite a while. And what you can see is every time these spikes hit this 34.5-ish kind of area, they couldn't push through that, and they would fall back down again to this support that kept on climbing. And what I mean by that is here, let's do this. So you can see that the bottoms, these troughs, kept bouncing off of that climbing level of support or basement, but you had the peaks kept bouncing off of this resistance or this ceiling that they couldn't quite seem to break through until we get over here in early September, and they bust right through. And now we're in them. Now I'm going to zoom in here to the end of the period, and we can see here that we are in this period of investors trying to figure out, are we high enough now? Are we going to keep going higher? Where are we at? So right now the market is taking a little bit of a breather. It's gotten pretty strong, and so investors and such are kind of taking a step back and they're kind of assessing what's going on now. And whenever we see the candlesticks really small like this, all within each other, it tells us that the investors are all just sort of digesting everything, and there's no big movements anticipated real soon. Let us go back here. Let's go back, show the whole year, go back to the line chart, and we can pop over here to the forecast. Are you ready for this? Are you all ready for this? This is, look at this. I tell you, this is something. They're looking, they being the folks at Trading Economics, but not just Trading Economics. I've seen this in other sources as well. But they're expecting uh, gold to get up into the 3850-ish area in the next 12 months. So, boy, howdy, that is sweet. I mean, that is really, really nice. And what I like about this curve, this line, so what you can see is we have, it kind of peaks. There's kind of a steepness early on here. It's hard for me to show you that. Let me see. Can I zoom in? Yeah, it doesn't want to let me zoom in on the way this chart is configured. But what we see happen is there's a bit of a steepness to the front end of this line, and then it kind of settles out. So you've got this relatively steep peak here, and then it kind of settles out. So what that is, what that's suggesting for us is if you've got some gold bearing material right now, maybe if you can, you want to hold it a little bit because we might get a nice rise here in the next couple of weeks or month or so. And then we're going to have a nice steady rise after that. So don't be in a hurry to sell your gold bearing material. There's more goodness to come. Now, a lot of that depends on your situation, of course, because you might need to sell it for cash flow. There are those of us, small business scrap and recyclers, who we have to pay the bills every month. So we got to keep stuff moving. And that means selling gold bearing material, even though we might be able to get more later on. We got to keep it moving. In some cases, it's to meet cash flow requirements. In some cases, we just are running out of space. There's a lot of reasons why you would sell, even though there could be some future long-term goodness coming our way. It's always a tough decision. That I like to share with you what my plans are, so I'm going to be continuing to move my stuff. I've just sent a Gaylord box to Board Sort, and I'm getting ready to start filling up another one. I just got to figure out what my load plan is for the next Gaylord box going to Board Sort. And I've also been keeping some potential gold bearing material behind because I am preparing for my own gold recovery kind of work in the future. So that's going to be a lot of fun when we get around to doing that. So, and you know what? I mean, it's always kind of sweet to do this. We take a look at going all the way back here to the mid 60s, and we can see that we're at record highs for gold. Record highs. We're living in that time of record high gold prices. So, the challenge, the issue becomes, well, so what do you do if you have some gold, right? I mean, I'm sure that a lot of you have some gold bars or some gold rounds or maybe even coins, and if you might want to take advantage of this and maybe get some cash out of that. I don't know. What do you are any of you going to sell any of your gold? And I don't mean your gold bearing material, your scrap gold, but your bullion gold. Or is anybody out there planning on selling any of your bullion gold? Just yeah, just I'm just curious what you all are, if any of you are planning on doing that. I am not going to be selling any of my bullion gold at this point. I don't really have a whole lot anyway, and most of what I bought as bullion type gold is it was collectible, not collectibles, but like I bought a gold eagle and I bought a gold Britannia, and so it's because I just wanted to have that because I just thought they were, they're pretty, they're a nice keepsake kind of thing. I'll probably pass those on to the kids, but I have a tremendous amount of silver bullion, and so that's where I would be looking to do some selling, and we can talk about that in next week's video. Well, then let us head on over here to the comments section and let's see who else has joined us and what you all have to say about gold. Let's see. E-Waste Mike joined the house. Mike's Meltdown joined the house. Great to have you all here. Electronic Scrappers in the house. Awesome. Great to have everybody here. Scrapping Irish is saying, not selling, going to bring it to the grave with me. Are we burying you in your gold there, Irish? And he was buried in a gold lined casket, folks. Oh man, it's kind of funny though. At least I sometimes I think to myself, what's going to happen when I pass away? How's the wife going to deal with all this stuff? If she's still around, how about the kids? What are they going to do? Are they going to scratch their heads and go, "What in the world was he thinking?" Or are they going to be stoked? Are they going to be like, "Oh man, I am so glad Dad was putting this stuff away"? Yeah, it's hard to say. Hard to say. Um, but that's all part of the thing that we have to think to ourselves. What do we want to do with all of our stuff, right? It and it's funny because I frequently say, don't depopulate a board unless you know what you're going to do with the stuff you're taking off. And so in life, I guess there's a similar kind of thing. It's like we acquire all this stuff. What are we going to do with it, right? I mean, as we get older, and some of us are a little bit older than others, maybe we should be enjoying the wealth that we have acquired and the money that we have acquired, even if you don't consider yourself wealthy, rather than passing it on. Yeah, it's I don't know. That's an interesting one. Let's see. And Andy's saying, imagine the joy of the archaeologist digging up Irish's grave in 1,000. Oh man, that's funny. Archaeologists in 3032 are going to think they hit Irish King's tomb. Oh, that is funny. Oh man, yeah, yeah. An Irish king, an Irish king, yeah. Well, okay. So uh, today's plan escape plans. All right. So what I'm getting at here is whether it's your house, your workspace, if you're traveling and you're staying at a hotel, Um, you want to think about what you're going to do in the case of an emergency. Now, the easiest thing, of course, that we think about is if there's a fire. So if you're in your house and you have a fire at the house, you want to make sure that you've thought about how you, your spouse, your kids are going to get out of the house. If you have a multi-story house, that might mean that you want to have some sort of escape ladders available on the second floor that you can drop out of windows so that you can get out of the house. There's lots of stuff that you can find online for that. You might also be thinking about um, fire extinguishers placed at key locations. Now, you don't want your house to look like an industrial site, so you're thinking through these things from the aesthetics of your house. But in your workspace, you really want to be thinking about this because that's most likely where you're going to have your fire or something of that nature. So when you're in your workspace this week, when you get there this week, go to the area that you're normally working in the most and just say to yourself, okay, where could there be a fire? And if there was a fire at that location, how would I get out of the building safely? Um, and just sort of think it through. And it's little things like, do you always have a passage that is relatively free of interference to get to the door? Whether it's your big bay door or your small people door or something like that. How are you going to get out of that space? The other thing that you want to think about is, are there fire extinguishers near to you that you can use if you have to beat down the flames in order to help you get to where you're going? So that's another thing that you're going to want to think about. The issue becomes really complicated too, because remember, when there's a fire, you're going to have heavy smoke, and you may not be able to see. You're going to have to get down low on the, get down on the deck in order to still have some breathable air, because smoke and heat and everything rises. So you want to get as low as you can, and then you got to think to yourself, am I still going to recognize how to get out of this place when I'm in that kind of situation? Now, this becomes even more important when you're traveling and you're staying in a hotel or a guest's house. You really want to think that one through. Now, hotels, at least here in the United States, and hotels I've stayed at in the United Kingdom, and I'm pretty sure that all the hotels I stayed at in Europe have this. They'll have a fire escape plan on the back of the door in your hotel room. But I also take the extra step of, when I check into my room, when I get in my room, one of the first things that I do after I set my suitcases down is I step out of the door of my hotel room and I walk to the emergency exit. And that way I have sealed in my mind, okay, I need to come out of my hotel room, I need to turn left. And if I'm feeling for doors, it's the fifth door on my left. Because if there's a smoke filled, hotel passageway, you're not familiar with it, you may not be able to see the doors, the emergency lighting. So being able to say, turn left, go down, it's the fifth door, could save your life. So it seems like it's a weird thing to do, but I really encourage everybody to practice that the next time you go check into a hotel, because you'll be surprised that little step is going to stick in your brain, and when you need it, it's going to be there for you. If you don't do that and the fire alarms go off and it's smoky, you're going to panic. If you don't panic, you're going to easily get confused because you're in a new space, and it could make the difference between you getting out of that place or not. And then anytime that you're going into a new building, just sort of get some situational awareness about how you're going to get out of that building if you have to. Most restaurants have very clearly marked emergency exits. But if you're in picking up scrap at somebody's workshop or an industrial complex, those kind of things, it might be a little different for you. So that little bit of just paying attention could make all the difference in the world between you getting out of and surviving a fire in some location as opposed to not. All right, so not trying to, certainly not trying to scare anybody. It's just, a little bit of preparation can go a long, long way in helping us to, uh, to just to stay alive. So, how about have any of you ever been in a situation where you have had to, where you've been in a fire, you've been in a flood, you've been in an earthquake, you've been in something that has forced you to have to evacuate someplace that you've been in, and you actually had to think about your escape plan. Um, the other escape plan that we don't think about, but is really important, is weather related stuff. Now, I lived in Florida for a long time, and so we always thought about hurricanes. And Mrs. Shark and I always had a hurricane plan. So we would watch if hurricanes were approaching. We would make a decision if the forecast becomes this, we're going to leave, so that we had time to get away, and we would have an idea of where we were going, and we would tell people where we were going. That was a huge deal when we were up here and we had Tropical Storm Helene came in and flooded things out, and we had roads that were shut down. I mean, it literally took us 3 days to cut the trees and debris and stuff away from the roads in order to get to someplace. And then it was, by the time we got ourselves, we being the neighborhood and such, by the time we had the roads cleared out to a main road, the state had one of the interstates open, and we were able to evacuate because at that point there was no power and no water, and it just wasn't a safe situation. So you want to think about from a larger perspective: are there weather situations that could cause you to do an evacuation? And if so, have you thought about where you're going to go and what your plan is? Um, and if you are going to do that kind of evacuation, you want to make sure that you have your go bags ready. And in your go bags, you want to have medicines, food for your dog, water and safety supplies for yourself, some clothing. Um, so, me, I'm a checklist guy. So, make a checklist of all the stuff that you're going to need if you're going to be out of your house for, say, a week or 2 weeks or something like that, so that you bring all the stuff that you think you're going to need to have. All right, so let's see. Mike's meltdown is saying Navy training kicks in and I fight the fire because jumping ship means treading water. Well, it's a little bit different, Mike, because we're not aboard ship anymore. I know what you mean. I am, you and I had pretty much the same training when we were out there floating on the pond. So it's an important thing to think about. When we're not aboard ship, of course, we don't have to fight that fire because it's not going to sink around us. And the safest thing for us to do is just get out of the building and let the firefighters, let the professionals deal with putting out the fire. Now, if it's a small trash can fire, that's a different situation, of course. But anything more than a small trash can fire, yeah, just get out and let the professionals do the job. Uh, Andy's asking me if I'm a prepper. No, I'm not a prepper. Not in the classic sense that people think of as a prepper. I do common sense preparations, especially when I lived down in Florida, and we always had to be ready for hurricane season. But I don't consider myself a prepper in the sense that I don't have a closet or a basement that's full of dehydrated food. I don't have weapons and thousands of rounds of ammunition. I don't have all that kind of stuff that we classically associate with a prepper. Now, Having said that, we do have canned goods and a regular supply of food that we know will last us for a couple of weeks, even if we lose power. I pay attention to the weather and during the fire season, the forest fires and such, in case we need to do some stuff to prepare. I have since the hurricane installed a generator to the house, so it's fed by natural gas off of the street. It's already come in really handy. We've had 3 or 4 times now where we lost power for a half a day, 2 days so far. I think was the longest we were running one generator. So really nice to have that generator in place. And in addition to the generator, I went out and got a solar charging station for my Eco batteries. So my lawnmower and all my power tools are Ego products, EGO products, and they have a power station that you can get where you can connect it to a set of solar panels and charge all those batteries so that you can then have those batteries available for, say, a small, fridge kind of thing for emergency communications, those sorts of things. So, yeah, I don't consider myself a prepper, but I do believe in being prepared. Yeah, that's the thing, man. Keep food, water, the other bits around you that you need, so that you'll be okay for a while. Um, the other, I think sometimes, and it's like, hey, at the age that I'm at, if the apocalypse was to happen, zombie or otherwise, and you've got roving bands of people out there, it's like, yeah, I'm too old to be, doing battle with all these people anyway. I'm toast. So, in that extreme, it's over anyway. But in the normal course of realistic events, yeah, I think we're pretty well prepared and we can manage. So, Ed Weber joined the house. Ed, great to have you here. Thanks for joining us, man. Always good to have you here. And Mike is saying that I wish I could say the chance of a hurricane hitting you guys again is minuscule, but unfortunately, they're getting stronger each year. Yeah, they sure are. Mike, the oceans are warming, and as the oceans get warmer, there's more energy to go into the storms, and that's just the way it is. That's physics. There's not much that can be done about it. And we, it, People used to think that Western North Carolina was an environmentally friendly zone in the sense that bad stuff didn't happen here. That was a silly thing to think because they had terrible flooding back in 1916. We had terrible flooding last year from Tropical Storm Helene. So, I mean, it happens. No place in the world is safe from weather events. And the weather is just getting more dynamic and more powerful. And so, we all have to be better prepared for it. Absolutely. And Richard is saying, "Hey, Shark, if we get hit and I can't buy gas for the mower, code enforcement is welcome." Yeah, I'm glad I'm not dealing with that anymore. It's funny. We have a quote unquote HOA where I live, but up here in Western North Carolina, these are referred to as snowplow HOAs. So we all put in a little bit of money into an account, and there's one of the people in the neighborhood that is designated to call the snowplow person for that one day a year when we need to get the street plowed or something of that nature. So yeah, it's funny. The HOA that we have here in Western North Carolina is nothing like the house Nazis that we had to deal with down in Florida. Oh my God, that was just insane down there. And I don't miss that at all. I am so glad to be out of that mess. All righty. Well, it is time for us to move into our next. um, our next metal for the day, and boy howdy, we really love this one. I mean, this is one of favorite, our fave metals here. Copper. Um, I mean, copper is just it's. I mean, what's not to love about copper, right? I mean, come on. Uh, I mean, really, look at that. There you go. What's not to love about copper? All right, so copper futures climbed above. By the way, again, we're on Trading Economics website here. So copper futures rose above 4.6 a pound in mid-September, highest in 6 weeks, as lightning global supply underpinned prices. China reported around 5% drop in September's production, cutting 500,000 tons of refined copper from the market. The climb comes as inventories remain near multi-year lows, with the London Metal Exchange stockpiles around 40% below their 5-year average. And supply pressures deepened after major producer Freeport McMoran confirmed that its Grasberg mine in Indonesia will stay shut while rescue efforts continue for the 7 missing workers. Remember, they had a mine collapse there. And then there's also the expectation of looser U.S. monetary policy with softer labor data and moderate inflation fueling bets on a deeper Federal Reserve cut. We talked about the rate cuts coming already. So here we are, we're looking at 1 year of copper prices. And, we've been on a bit of a ride here. We had this rise, we had this fall, drop off, we had this jagged climbing event that went on for a while, and then it eventually we get up to where we were up here above 5,750. What were we up there again? We were pushing 6. Then we had this crash after the U.S. administration announced what the copper tariffs were going to look like. And remember, there was a lot of confusion with the copper tariffs. Were they even going to tariff copper? If they were, was it going to be all copper, raw copper, or finished products? So a lot of copper flooded into the U.S. ahead of the announced tariffs. And then when the tariffs came out, it was only on products that were made with copper, and the ore and the copper anodes, the pure coppers, were not tariffed, and so the markets then were out of whack globally, and so there was some rebalancing that went on, and now we're seeing sort of the market influences, the macro market influences, take over what's happening here with these prices. So let us pull up the candlestick charts, and we're going to zoom into this time frame that we've been recently dealing with. So here we can see the crash that followed the announcements of the what the tariffs were going to look like. And now we can see in here, you see how small these candles are. Remember, each one of these candles represents a day of trading. And so you can see these are not very big swings in prices here. They're really small. Some people would even call those dojis because there's almost no candlestick at all. But we're slowly starting to dig ourselves out of this. It's a very slow kind of climb back out. And there's some goodness in that that the market isn't just jerking around up and down and up and down, and just causing trouble for us. Because when the markets become unstable like that, then our scrapyards they become nervous. Prices can go up artificially because they don't know what's going to happen and they're hedging themselves. So a slow climb out like we're seeing is pretty good. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's take a look at what is the forecast looking like for copper here. Oh, well, that's nice. Again, we're taking a look at this part of the chart right here, and we can see that copper is expected to get over $5 a pound in the next 12 months, which is really nice. What are they saying? 516 in the 12-month time frame. So that's really nice. And this line here, this gray line, that's a bit steeper, I believe, than the last time we looked at copper. So I'm thinking that they're expecting between production sort of settling out and getting used to what it's going to do, and the challenges of copper production, that we would see steeper prices, steeper price increases. Now, we like that as scrappers because that means that our copper scrap is going to be worth a lot more money. And if you look really, really closely here at the first part of this, and I wish I could zoom in on that part of it, but the chart doesn't let me zoom in on it. But if you look very closely here in the first part of this, it looks like there's a kind of almost a vertical climb here for a little bit before we get into this line. I might just be imagining that. But either way here, what we're looking at is copper is going to be climbing. That's really good for us in the scrap and recycle market because that means that we can expect to see much better copper prices for our scrap. And who doesn't like to see better copper prices for our scrap? I mean, really. The issue that this raises for us, and I'm going to stay on this chart while we have this discussion. I don't think you need to sit there and look at my ugly mug. The challenge here is, okay, so do I hold my copper now or do I let it keep climbing and sell it? So this is classic why I strongly believe in and recommend that you should always hold at least 10%. Excuse me. Let me start that one over. Sorry about that. You should always hold back at least 10% of your good copper, your number one copper, your bare bright, as a strategic reserve to take advantage of these kind of price increases. It shouldn't impact your cash flow that much as long as you have a good turnover of number two and number three insulated copper wire, number one insulated copper wire, which you're probably stripping to get bare bright. So, that might be part of your strategic reserve. Number two copper, we tend to get a lot of number two copper as scrappers. So, if you're having a good influx of the lower grade copper scrap, you can use that for your cash flow while you hold back some of your number one copper and your bare bright, and use that to hedge your future and take advantage of these forecasted price rises. That's the approach that I'm taking. Now, it's a little bit more complicated too, even for me, because I am also going to be experimenting with some casting. So I'm holding back aluminum, copper, and brass for future casting projects, which may or may not get sold on the market for a premium. It all depends. Uh, you know, I can't imagine anybody's going to want to pay me a lot of money for my early projects as I figure out what I'm doing and I build my skill set, but you never know. In any event, there's some complications to each of our plans for what we're doing, but on the basic sense, right now, you can sell your lower grade copper for good cash flow. You can keep back at least 10% of your high grade copper in order to take advantage of these future prices. And that would be a very good strategic plan to have for your copper. All right, well, let's see. What are you all planning on doing with your copper? Uh, and what kind of comments do we have? Uh, Richard is saying copper, so wheat. Patrick Williams. Patrick, I don't know if I said hello when you came in or not. Welcome. If I missed. Copper saying up, up, up it goes. Richard saying I used to sell copper at a number one at 75 cents a pound. Was happy to sell it. Nowadays, I hold my copper, waiting on price spikes. It doesn't take up much space. Yeah, that's one of the nice things about copper is that um, it it really doesn't take up a whole lot of space to have some good weight. It's it's pretty easy to hold back enough to make it worth kind of hanging on to. Um, Now, Richard's also saying that he has a full time job as well as VA disability coming in. So, the scrapping for him is just adding to the retirement fund. Scrapping on the fly. Welcome. Great to have you here. And that's a really important point too, right? Because if you're a hobby scrapper, if you're just doing this as a side gig, your considerations are going to be very different than folks like E-Waste Mike and I who are doing this as a small business. And for us, we got to pay the bills and hopefully have some left over to pay ourselves. And then to invest in the things that we're going to do moving forward, plus buying the scrap that we have to buy. Again, it's another huge difference between a hobby scrapper and a small business scrapper. Mike and I buy most of the material that we get. Now, Mike is very fortunate because he has a number of contacts who will just give him stuff, or they'll trade his labor and let him take the stuff away. And that's a good barter system to have. Um, but for a lot of small businesses, we're buying the material and then we do our value add to it to make some money on the other side. So there's those considerations that you have to think about. All really good stuff. Let's see. Ed is saying that Bear Bright Copper stuck at 350 in East Tennessee. Ed, I haven't taken any copper in for a while here, so I'm not sure what we're getting in Western North Carolina. I suspect you may be dealing with this, a same situation that I deal with here, in that my yard, they have to their transport costs are pretty steep. They're shipping stuff out by truckloads to somewhere, as opposed to when I was in Florida, and there were mills right there in Florida that were processing a lot of material, and so the transportation costs were a lot less for the businesses that I sold to in Jacksonville, Florida, as opposed to up here in Western North Carolina. That might be contributing to that. All right, so we had two interesting stocks that came up this week. So let's go over and talk about these two stocks real quick. The first one is a company called Sunoco Products. No, this is not the old Sunoco fuel. I don't even know if Sunoco gas stations are even around anymore if they were bought out by somebody else. I should know that answer, but I don't. And no, this is not the trucking company that you see sometimes that moves around the food, the transportation company that moves around a lot of food stuff. But Sunoco Products is in the packaging and container business. I do need to remind everybody that I get the bulk of my information on the stocks comes from the Value Line Investment Survey. These people do not take any advertising, so it's all based on analysis of the numbers and all the publicly available data. They're not biased by advertisers. And I pay for this. It's a subscription. I get nothing in compensation from them. I'm not sponsored by them. So, I got to throw those caveats out there. The other caveat is that I am not a licensed investor or financial counselor of any sort. So this is just me sharing what I look at when I'm deciding what I'm going to invest in. And this company has got my attention for a couple of reasons. The first one is that they are qualified in two areas. Now, remember, I want companies that are qualified in either cash flow per share, earnings per share, or dividends per share. And what I mean by that is that for the last 17 years, one or more of those three things has gone up every year. I will allow them a flat or a down year in the mix, only one. And what you can see is that Sunoco, ticker SON, uh, is got a nice yield at 4.5%. So I am going to make that sell goad because anything over 4% is of interest to me. And the other nice thing about uh, Sunoco is the share price isn't bad. 47.25. That's very well in the affordability range for most of us. You can see that they are what I call a CF1. That means that they only had 1 year where their cash flow per share went down. So right here, 23 to 24. But otherwise, the last 17 years, they've gone up. And their dividend per share is a div zero, which means it has gone up every year for the last 17 years. It's actually gone up every year for a long, long time. The payout has risen 42 consecutive years. Think about that. 42 consecutive years, this company has increased their dividends per share. That tells me that they're a good, strong company and they're taking care of their shareholders with these dividends. And that's what I look at when I am buying a stock is dividends. I'm a boring investor, right? I just want to buy and hold and let the dividends stack up. Sunoco Products is a leading producer of paper-based tubes, cores, cylinder paper board, composite cans, protective platforms, wired cable reels, and point-of-purchase displays. All right, and they're all over the world. So they're international, and that makes them interesting to pretty much all of us. If you do invest and you're not here in the U.S. but you're somewhere else, you should be able to find this company. And the analysis from the value line people is that neutrally ranked Sunoco shares have moved sideways this year. The stock price is unchanged as investors evaluate the transformation of the company and the end market demand. Longer term, eventually the industrial business will recover and cost savings from the merger. Oh, they're talking about a merger that they did with a metal packaging company. Let's see, what was the name of that company? Enviosys. So that the cost associated with that will get absorbed. The dividend yield is the major attraction. The payout has risen for 42 consecutive years. Given the recent improvement in the balance sheet, income-oriented investors may find a position worthwhile. So that is some of the strongest language that these folks ever like to use when it comes to should you take a position in a stock. So I am giving very serious thought to adding these folks to my portfolio. Now, the other company that I want to bring to your attention is a name that I'm guessing most of you will recognize. So it's Clorox. And if they're unless I'm sure a lot of you buy generic bleach products, but Clorox, they make a lot of cleaning products. They're a global manufacturer and marketer of consumer and professional products, health and wellness, cleaning. They own Clorox, Pine Sol, Liquid Plumber, Tilex, Formula 409, and they have professional food service cleaning products. They have vitamins like Renewal Light, Rainbow Light, Natural Vitality, NeoCell. They also are in cat litter game. So Fresh Step and Scoop Away, Everclean, And they own Glad bags and Kingsford Coal, which is interesting. They have Hidden Valley food products, Burt's Bees. They own Brita water filtration. So man, they do a lot of stuff besides just bleach. Um, but here's the thing with Clorox. So we're gonna get this going. They are, that's a nice yield, 4.2%. So it's gold. That's as of 12 September. But look at that price, $118.20. Yeah, that one's getting a little steep. Uh, and it's like, yeah, I don't know that I'm going to put that kind of money into a company when I can get a very similar return at a much lower price on somebody like Sunoco. That said, they are a Div 1, so they've had this. They are qualified here. They had this 1 year. Now, when I first started doing this analysis, this qualification analysis, I would disqualify a company if the dividends went down a year. I would let them have a flat year, but if they went down, I would disqualify them. I don't do that anymore. I now consider them qualified even if they went down 1 year. Uh, but I have to take a real hard look at whether or not I like why they went down. Yeah, I'm going to tell you right up front, I am not going to be buying any Clorox stock right now, but it's because the price is just too steep for me. They do have a lot of brands that are underneath their umbrella. Those are, pretty well-known brands, pretty good product there. But yeah, I'm not going to be buying into them. That's just a little too steep for me at this point. But I am going to be giving Sunoco right here. I am going to be giving Sunoco a real good hard look. And so we might be throwing some bones at Sunoco. All righty. Well, so we've got, let's see, D Scrapper joined the house. Welcome. Great to have you here. Sorry I didn't say hi when you first popped in. And D, I think Richard is saying that he's offered to buy from you, but not sure how to do it. So you folks can figure that one out. Um, and it's interesting because I've had a few people that have reached out to me recently and said, "Hey, would you consider selling some of your material to me?" I am not looking for any new buyers right now. I have three larger companies that I do business with, and some smaller folks that I have vetted for specific things that I'm very comfortable selling to. So I'm not looking for any more buyers right now. And because one of the things that I don't want to do is I don't want to get in this situation where I'm, I know it's business. I know it's our capital system is like, okay, well, I'm gonna, you're gonna give me this, but this other person wants to give me more. So, I'm gonna play one against the other. I really don't like doing business that way. To me, business is a long-term relationship. And when I find a company, whether it's Board Sort or the guy that I use for refining, when I find someone that I have vetted, that I've worked with for a while now, that I've built up a good trusting relationship with, that's who I want to stay with. Because to me, there's a lot of value in the relationship, the long term business to business relationship. And it's like I used to tell when I was in the business development world, whether it was defense industry or in the logistics industries, I would tell people all the time business development is about relationships, sales is about transactions. Transactions are how you make the money move from one company to another, but the business relationship is what allows you to continue to grow and grow together. And those kind of things are really, really important to have. It's a it's the kind of thing that it's what allows it allows me to feel fine that I'm going to ship, a couple $1,000s worth of material to boardsort.com, and I know they're going to pay me. I don't have to worry about it. And in fact, I know that in many cases, if I've made a mistake in the grading, they'll reassess up or down and give me an explanation. I don't even question it. I know it's the right answer, that the mistake was mine. So I view all business relationships as a long term relationship. And so right now, I'm very comfortable with the clients I have, but I appreciate all the offers that folks have made to do business with me. Now, having said that, if you're somewhere near the Asheville area and you have stuff you need to sell, computers or other electronics, I will be happy to come out and take a look at what you have, give you a quote, pick it up, get it out of the way for you. Um, you can never have enough clients that you're buying from or picking up from. I can always use more of those. Well, everybody, it is time for us to head across the pond now over to Ireland. So, if uh, unfortunately, when I was setting up the live stream today, I completely forgot to enable the redirect. So when I end this stream, please go into YouTube, and if you're a regular, you probably already got your notice that Scrapping Irish is live. If not, please go to YouTube, type in Scrapping Irish in the search bar. It'll take you. You'll see his live stream, and I hope to see you over there. I am looking forward to how the live stream plays out over in Ireland, because the panel can always be interesting. The conversations can always be interesting. We're never really sure where it's going to go. And it's always a lot of fun, however it plays out. So I look forward to seeing you over in Ireland. If I don't see you over in Ireland, have a great week. Please stay safe and make sure that when you go to your workshop or your place of business tomorrow, give yourself that safety walkthrough and make sure you have your emergency plan in place. Have a good one. We'll see you all in